Capcom just dropped a bunch of new details about Resident Evil Requiem, but I'm betting you didn't spot all of them. Luckily for you, I have scrubbed through the recent gameplay frame by frame to bring you all of these details you might not have noticed, so let's get on with it. Okay, there's one thing that I need to point out immediately. In a couple of seconds, we're going to see Grace come up against a glass screen, and it looks like there is someone behind it in like an ivory nightgown, this scene right here. Now, I don't think this is the stalker. I think this might actually be her mother. Later on in the video, we're going to see a zombie that has a white dress on that looks like it could be this one, but it's actually not because the cut of the dress is very different. But I believe this is Alyssa Ashcroft, Grace's mother. And as you might be able to tell from the glass screen, she is being a test subject for something not good. Grace looks pretty horrified in this scene, so I think safe to say Alyssa has not been having a good time since she went missing. Sorry, was murdered. One of the next things I want to point out is that Leon, as well as having a chainsaw, a hatchet, and one hell of a magnum, also has context actions in Resident Evil Requiem. You saw just there was an A from melee attack, and as you can see, as you get closer to enemies, you're not always able to do melee attacks by the looks of it, but there are like special attacks you can do that have their own special animations, like that very visceral balloon popping one. As Leon's action gameplay is a lot more tense than Grace's in that he can actually take care of the threats coming towards him, it makes sense that he has this wide repertoire of attacks because Leon has been through all of it. The enemies in Requiem are really interesting, this one in particular that you can see on the side. It is a patient with a blood bag and bandages wrapped around their face. Now, we actually get a much closer look at him later on. So, right here, in a couple of seconds, this is Grace sneaking up on the patient from behind. And when she gets close, we can see that although he can see out of one very pale eye, which I will be coming back to, it looks like that bandage has fallen aside so that his eye was meant to be covered. Now, this makes me think that whatever virus they're dealing with that Victor undoubtedly has a hand in, it does something to the sensitivity of the person's eyes, because the lighter eyes you have, the more difficult it is to look at bright sunlight or bright light in particular. So I wonder if the fact that this bandage has slipped from his eye implies that for the infected, they get quite sensitive to light. Otherwise, why would you cover them up unless it helped the patient? You know what I mean? And this would also line up with the stalker, who we know doesn't like light in the slightest. So if she's been injected with the same virus as this chap here, then there's probably some correlation in the symptoms they experience. We're about to see Leon do some investigating and not quite have the high octane gameplay you might expect, but as you've noticed by the fact that I've paused the video, right here we can see an antique coin on the piano. Now, antique coins were also in Resident Evil 7, but they had a pelican on the front and you could use them to unlock extra items. So there was steroids, a stabilizer, and the Magnum 44 you could unlock with antique coins that you'd put in this birdcage-like thing. But in this one, if you look super closely at that icon next to the antique coin, it looks like it's not a pelican on it. It looks like a face, maybe Medusa or something. Either way, the iconography behind the antique coin is something that I've not really been able to figure out because they have pelicans on them. But why are pelicans significant to Resident Evil? I don't know, I couldn't find an answer online, so if you think you know, do let me know in the comments. But either way, these antique coins are going to be used in Resident Evil Requiem, probably to unlock more items very similarly to Resident Evil 7. And while I'm here, these antique coins are said to be an old commemorative coin according to the item descriptions, but what on earth are they commemorating? Again, I don't know, I feel like that's some deep lore that maybe the developers don't even fully know yet, and it's just an excuse to have a bunch of coins everywhere, but if you think you know, let me know in the comments. This is almost the last time I'm going to show this clip, I promise, but I want to pause it on just a split second of death here. There's loads of death to go around. Okay, sorry gal, I gotta rewind a little bit. Right here, as we have this close-up with this poor woman, we can see how she looks. Now, she has obviously been infected. If she's acting like this just out of her free will, I mean, good for her, but I don't think that's the case. We can see that she has very light eyes, just like the person who had the bandages over their face before, and also her mouth is like weirdly distorted. This is a much closer glimpse at what the mouths of these infected looks like. You can see that their mouths are not only a lot larger, but they're kind of distended in this like sad expression. Again, this zombie as well also has very light eyes, which I think backs up my thesis that light sensitivity is a part of this virus. But the way that their mouths look remind me kind of what people look like when they're on the progenitor virus. And later on there's going to be a still of what I think is a progenitor flower in the background, which would back up the idea that it is the progenitor virus that Victor has been messing around with. But just when you're watching the rest of this and I'm pausing things, just look at the zombie faces, because you can see that they all have the same mouth and the same eyes, and it's very peculiar. The next point is that Leon himself might not be having as good a time as you would expect. He seems to have come down with something. I'm going to pause it right here, and you can see just here, there's this like dark mark on his neck. I don't think that's contextual, him getting blood on him. I think there might be something wrong with Leon, and that would definitely explain why he's trying to find Victor and figure out what the hell is going on. I'm also just going to point out here real quick that he does have light-coloured eyes. I know he has always had light-coloured eyes, but just bear with me. And Grace does as well, so potentially they're both infected with the same strain of virus that Victor has been twiddling with. So from the showcase, we know that the zombies are going to have remnants of their past lives, kind of still acting out in their undead state. And this is more of like a really small, sad detail that I just wanted to mention. Right here, this custodian, she's cleaning the mirror and also banging her head against it, meaning it's never clean. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear her yelling, "messy," which is just really sad that the one thing she's remembered in death is the fact that she's working. Also, it looks like she has glass shards in her face from smashing her head into the mirror. I feel like there's going to be a lot of pathos with these zombies, that's all I'm going to say. We've seen a lot of gameplay in the hospital at this point. Now, all of this gameplay, even though it looks like they're in two very different locations, takes place in the Civic Care Centre. This bit with Leon is just masterfully designed because there's so much white and clean colours everywhere that when he shoots things and sends blood everywhere, it looks really good and really stylish. However, Grace is going to be exploring a different part of the building, and I know in particular that it's definitely the West Wing. I know that because I zoomed in on this map right here, and you can see that on the bottom of the map it's written West Wing. So it sounds like Grace and Leon are going to be exploring the same building, yes, but different areas of the building. This part here is really interesting as well. It looks like a zombie on zombie violence is going on. There's one zombie holding this other one by the neck. The one on the floor appears to be dead because it's not fighting back in any kind of way. But this looks like someone's office. And what's a really cool moment of not foreshadowing because things have already gone bad, but that's the Titanic in the background. The Titanic has 4 kind of like yellow cream coloured smokestacks, and the fact that they have a Titanic model in their office I think is a really cool way to kind of show that things were always going to go wrong. It seems like tempting fate to have a monument to human arrogance, to be honest, in your office. Right here, we're going to see the same office much close up. So there's the Titanic, there is the zombie that was attacked by the other zombie by the looks of it, and right here you can see a herb of some kind. Now, I've compared this to images of the flower that creates the progenitor virus, and I think they're the same thing. They've got the same very long stem and long spindly leaves and a flower bud right here, which makes me think that it's the progenitor virus that all these scientists have been studying. And Victor has the exact same image in what could be his office, and if not, it's still an image in the building that's been repeated, implying that it's kind of like a common interest for all the scientists and doctors there. So this is the same image right here. I think this is Victor Gideon's office. It kind of gives him anyway, because there are 2 giant ram skulls here, which looks like an evil villain thing, to be honest, even though I had them in my own house. So this shows that whatever this illustration is, either it's a placeholder in the game and it's just meant to decorate the space, or it's significant in that it might show the progenitor virus is being studied, so it's the virus that all of these zombies, and potentially Leon, is infected with as well. So we know vaguely when Requiem is taking place, but we don't know the events in the actual game itself that led up to this outbreak. But I think there might have been some kind of fancy gala going on in the hospital in the Civic Care Centre, and that's because of this scene right here. So we have, obviously, zombie chowing down on something, but also all of this food that doesn't look rotten. We got very familiar with rotten food in Resident Evil 7, but that's not this food here. It doesn't look discoloured, it doesn't look like it's got mould growing out of it. It might have been sitting there a while, but this makes me think that whatever happened with these people, the outbreak occurred in the middle of this fancy dinner, and Grace has maybe turned up like 5 hours later, 12 hours later or something, because none of these bits of food have gone rotten. I also think it's really cool, the contrast of a zombie that's chowing down on flesh on the table when there's all this glorious food nearby. And someone has been a subject of the food discussion themselves, because there's this body here that's sat up at the table. So whoever this was wouldn't have wanted to be them, and someone clearly chose to eat them over the delicious bits of other acceptable animal meat that are on the table. Resident Evil loves reusing old homes, so it's no surprise that the Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre used to be a mansion itself. I know that because these are bells that in Edwardian and Victorian mansions, and before then, you'd have these bells on the side in the servants' quarters that would be attached to each room in the house, like the drawing room, the dining room, people's bedrooms, and you would ring on the bells with a little pull-down sash to indicate that you wanted assistance in those rooms. This is really unusual to have in a modern building. I mean, it doesn't look modern even as it is, but I think this implies that the building that Grace and Leon are going to be exploring will have all those nook and cranny secrets that Resident Evil loves so much. And it will have them potentially because the manor was built by someone who had a lot of wealth and may have been quite eccentric as well. Because, I mean, there's no one needs an excuse to be eccentric. Live your life. You can tell how big the building is because in this shot here, this is a model of the building itself. And I mean, look at the size of this thing. So this will be the main entrance here, and it has 2 wings. Grace is at the moment in the west wing, so the other one must be the east wing. And this looks like a very old photograph of all of the staff, medical staff I assume, who were involved in the care centre when it became a care centre from a residential home. Just a really cool detail. I wonder if maybe this model might be used for some kind of puzzle perspectives, because in Resident Evil Village we did have the model of various buildings that you would work with to try and find secrets inside using balls. And a very fun detail for Grace coming up, not only is this gun absolutely massive, but its bullets can fire through 2 enemies at once, which would be great for lining up things and taking them down in one, which will definitely save Grace's skin more than one occasion. And then, right at the end of the showcase, we saw this giant baby-looking thing right here that looks like the baby from Resident Evil Village. However, I mean, obviously it's unique to Resident Evil Requiem, but it looks to have some similarities with the Stalker as well. If I scrub back a teeny tiny bit and you pay attention to its eyes, you can see that one of its eyes, I keep skipping past it, hang on, give me a sec. One of its eyes, this one right here, is not only clouded over, but it's bulging out of its socket, which is very reminiscent of the Stalker. So, I mean, not that you need more evidence that this common virus is sweeping through the care centre, but it looks like this same person was dosed with the virus and for whatever reason had an adjacent reaction to it as the Stalker did. And once again, pale eyes, bulging out of their sockets, sensitivity to light, definitely a common theme with whatever this virus is. This is just a still because in the gameplay itself it flashes past in maybe 0.1 of a second, but you can see here that someone's been taking note of someone's body and they have a black birthmark on one side of their neck and a similar birthmark on their hand. Originally I thought this was Leon and they were maybe tracking his symptoms, but it's the neck, whatever the hell this is, birthmark, is on the wrong side. So when you're playing the game, keep an eye out for someone like this. It's possible this might just be a corpse from the murders that we've seen mentioned before, but I think this person is significant, whatever that birthmark ends up being. Now, because I am unhinged and also very dedicated to Requiem, I actually wrote down everything that was in these newspaper flashes that appear right at the beginning of the gameplay showcase. And it's basically a summation of what happened with Raccoon City and the fact that the quarantine has been pushed back by a number of years. This bit in particular is different though. It reads, last month the federal government announced an extension of Raccoon City's lockdown, now set to continue until 2040. The city has remained under lockdown since the sterilization operation following the viral outbreak in 1998. Although initial plans aimed to ... lifting the lockdown in 2026, that was recently overturned. So the implication here is that the lockdown was going to be lifted the year that Requiem takes place, but it's been pushed back because the government officials are worried about the safety of the space itself. There's also a part in this where it says the US federal government launched a sterilization something to contain the viral outbreak. This unprecedented something from spreading beyond city limits and something global catastrophe. So all of these newspaper fragments, that copy is kind of mixed and matched throughout them, but it's basically saying that it is still unsafe in Raccoon City and the government aren't really saying why. So there's the implication, which is backed up by this email that we saw sent by someone from the White House. There's the implication that the government know about whatever Elpis is, which means hope in Greek, and they're trying to keep it undercover because it's somehow localized in the ruins of Raccoon City. This is another blink and you miss it moment, but it shows what quests Grace has undertaken. Now, obviously she needs to escape the care centre, but she also needs to take the child to the puzzle box. I'm sorry, what? Is there a child nearby? This might not be an actual flesh and blood child. It could be a statue, it could be a painting, it could be a figurine that she needs to take to the puzzle box. But whatever it is, I really hope it's not a real child in this godforsaken place, but it does imply that either there's a tool she needs to be using or something very peculiar indeed is going down in the care centre. We also got to see what that explosive injection Grace is using is actually called. It's a Hemolytic injector, and it's a special drug that destroys infected blood cells, prevents corpses from mutating, and can be used to stealthily take out enemies. What do you mean mutating? What's happening here? Is this a Kronos the New Dawn kind of thing, where corpses can mutate and attach onto other ones and build something incredibly unholy? Or does it mean that it simply prevents otherwise normal corpses from reanimating into the virus-infected things that we've seen in the entire gameplay showcase? I'm not entirely sure. I feel like it might be something like it stops them from getting even harder to take on once they've already been taken down, but let me know what you think in the comments. Right here, there is something interactable right beside Grace. Originally, I thought this was a jukebox, but it doesn't really look like it has any space for a record, so maybe it's a casino machine or some kind of puzzle box. Maybe it's a clock because it's quite tall, but whatever it is, this looks like the classic Resident Evil find the thing to go in the thing to then open the ridiculously intricate key system in an item. Whatever it is, it's made of carved wood and it's got some kind of handle here and, I don't know, like a bronze face of some kind here with little images. Let me know what you think this is in the comments. I think it's probably some kind of slot machine, but whatever it is, maybe this is a plaque actually. This looks like writing now that I'm taking a closer look at it. There might be some kind of plaque that commemorates whatever happened to turn this mansion into the Civic Care Centre. And finally, we got a glimpse at what you get with the Deluxe edition in Resident Evil Requiem. There's definitely a film noir theme going on, as this is the film noir filter you can have, as well as the two costumes that Leon and Grace have. Now, these are both called film noir costumes, and there's a special skin for the gun that is a film noir skin. So clearly this theme of mystery and investigation and solving things is central to Resident Evil Requiem, because that's commonly attributes that are found in film noir. Also, it says here vaguely that you will get files. Nothing more exciting has ever been suggested. What these files are actually what's called letters from 1998. So I assume those letters will be about the Raccoon City outbreak, potentially what happened at the Civic Care Centre before Raccoon City got bombed, and maybe some sterilization operation details. So there we go, those are all of the details that I spotted in the recent gameplay from Resident Evil Requiem. Did you spot anything that I missed? Do let me know in the comments, and also forgive me for the fact that in this video I've definitely said Resident Evil Requiem at least once because I have trouble with R's and W's, okay? If you like this video, please do like it and subscribe to Eurogamer for way more content about Resident Evil Requiem. It is going to completely take over my life when it comes out, and I hope you will come along for the ride. So, I will see you folks next time.